Welcome back to Energy Watch Party podcast with your co-host, Cattail.
Hello.
I don't think I did the introductions last time. Whatever.
You didn't.
Last one we talked about kind of TV shows in general, like what makes them good, what makes them not good, whatever. This one is about specifically one TV show, one in particular, which we have both seen now. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, we've both seen it. I've seen it from beginning to end, unfortunately.
I'm never going to see it from beginning to end because I have better things to do with my life.
I would recommend nobody watches it from beginning to end. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And that show is The Flash, the CW 2014 TV show that ran to 2020. Was it 3? I think it was the beginning of 3 it ended. I don't know.
See,
just went on way too long. But we're going to get to that. So I'll start with, I guess, my context for the show first, and then we'll kind of get into talking about it. So if I'm not mistaken, if I'm remembering it correctly, The Flash Season 1 was the very first Arrowverse show I ever watched. I'm pretty sure. It was on Netflix, and I watched Season 1. I thought it was great. And I think after I was done, I went and watched Arrow's Season 1 through 3, because that was what was out at the time. So this is like 2015. So it was like pretty much right when Flash started. And then it was also about the time, I think the new seasons had just started, 4 for Arrow and 2 for Flash. But I had missed them already, because back then you kind of had to watch them live. Otherwise, you missed them. So I had to wait like months until they came out on Blu-ray, and I bought them instantly because there was also a delay for when they were added on Netflix. So I got the new seasons and watched them, and then when it came time for Flash Season 3, Arrow Season 5, watched them on TV, live, and I would do so throughout Flash Season 6. After I watched Season 6 live, I did not like it very much. I just didn't care. I thought they were going in a direction I didn't like, giving focus on a lot of characters that didn't really interest me. So I decided to give the very first episode of Season 7 the chance to convince me to continue watching the show. So I watched it live, and I stopped watching the show. So that was whatever. And then I was kind of just praying forever the show would end. I just, like, after each season would go by, I'd be like, can this be the last one? Can they finally end?
It's important to make the distinction here. He never wanted the show to get good again. He wanted the show to specifically end.
Yes, because at this point, 2 other shows that I really liked that ended on good terms were Gotham and Arrow. They were done, and they ended on their own terms. They didn't go on too long. I think also kind of at this point, this would happen maybe a little bit later. I watched Smallville for the first time, and I thought it went on way too long initially when I first watched it. It was 10 seasons long. So what I didn't want was that kind of situation where Flash would go on 10 seasons and it was bad. The other thing I was worried about, and the reason I wanted it to end, was because I didn't like Season 6, didn't like where Season 7 was going. The last thing I wanted was for Season 8 to come out and for it to actually be good. Because that would mean that you have 1 through 5, which are watchable. We'll get to that in a second. I think those are the good seasons. 6 and 7, which are not good. And then 8, which is good. How am I supposed to watch that? I got to sit through 2 bad seasons, and then what if I want to own them? I just got on my shelf, it's just 1 through 5, and then there's 8 there. I don't know. It's just weird. So I was worried about those several things. Didn't watch it. Finally, it ended. And we started, I rewatched the show with Cattail here from the very beginning, because I planned it out. When the show would end, I'm going to watch the entire thing from beginning to end, including the bad stuff, one time through, just to say I saw the whole thing. Not like anyone would be impressed by that, but just because I watch everything DC. So I'm just a completionist, see it once all the way through, never touch it again. So we started at season 1, watched it, and I guess now you can take over and talk about your experience watching this.
So, a while back, Nick Bly over here, I don't know what you go by, wanted to introduce me to Flash. And it's a show I'd heard a lot about. I knew that it fell off a cliff, like it was an open secret. And we had watched Arrow together at this point. Like, we'd seen the whole show. And I'd enjoyed Arrow. I thought it was a great show.
Also, we watched all the crossovers, so you were like familiar with, who Barry was, all that stuff.
The first things Arrowverse I ever watched were like Elseworlds and then Crisis on Infinite Earths. So I knew what I was kind of getting into going into this show. And I knew that after a point, it would get very bad. He warned me that after season 3, I could drop out at any time if I thought the show was going to get like very bad, if I was not enjoying watching the show anymore. And I think, to my credit a little bit, I stuck with the show all the way through season 5. And you know what? I actually liked the show through season 5. But I knew that after this, everything would be done. It would just be the worst. So I left after that, right before like the Crisis on Infinite Earths thing happened, before everything fell apart. And my experience with the show was kind of watching it all as a complete thing, as opposed to the weekly kind of release that you'd get for seasons back in the day. Yeah, watching it live. So my experience was a lot different. A lot of things that probably would have annoyed people didn't annoy me as much because it wasn't something you had to linger on for a week. And a lot of the mysteries held up a lot better because, it's actually progressing in the story. And you didn't have to wait for like 2 months for something to be resolved.
The shows are very bingeable. And I would say the same thing, especially for The Flash, watching it live or having an experience watching it live and watching it on Netflix, whatever, just binging it on my own pace. For Flash in particular, it's very bingeable, and I would recommend binging it instead. Do one or 2 to 4 episodes in each sitting, or something like that. But watching it week to week, I think it was a lot slower than something like Arrow. Arrow season 5 live was, obviously, if you had the choice to binge it, you would binge it. But getting that build up week to week and what they were doing with the characters was like worth it, I think.
Arrow was a show that was about like the build up and the mystery. Flash was not that kind of show.
Yeah, I think
Arrow was a much more drama focused show.
Arrow, I think, is stronger with individual episodes, but Flash has a good strength with season long and like, every 3 episodes there's something big or it's like that. And that's more the case with like seasons 3 through 5. 1 through 2 is very solid each episode, more so.
Yeah.
But
so, my experience, I dropped off after season 5, and then, the suffering. I'll let you detail a little bit of the suffering before we go in depth.
Yeah. So when we finished 5, I just started to watch. We watched Kaguya next after Flash.
A little bit of excess.
But we moved to Kaguya, and then on my own, I watched season 6, 7, 8, and 9 on Netflix, and I did not enjoy my time. Season 6 is pretty much all I remember, and it's still a mess. But it does get worse than season 6. I'll have to pull it up real quick, but one season was so bad. The whole 7, I think it's 7, but 7 through 9 are insultingly bad, particularly to me as an intelligent human being who decided to spend his time watching.
Also, importantly, as somebody who used to enjoy the show in its heyday.
Yeah, that it did not respect me as a fan of the characters for sure. The Flash. Who's the Flash? There it is.
Yeah.
So
my name is Barry Allen, and I am the fastest man alive. to the outside world, I am ordinary forensic scientist, but secretly, with the help of my friends, Star Labs, I forgot the rest. It changes from season to season, so.
He changed it. Well, yeah, he changed it one time, but yeah, season 7, 3 out of 10. It was not good. None of it's good. So where do you want to start? I think we should go season to season.
Yeah,
and talk about it. So, in my opinion, at least on the most recent rewatch that we did, I gave season 1 an 8 out of 10.
I think season 1 holds up surprisingly well as somebody who's not seen it. For anybody going into this looking for a serious superhero action drama show, that's not what you're going to get. This is a CW show. It's going to be campy. It's going to be a little bit ridiculous. Some things will happen for the sake of plot, and you have to accept that. If you don't, you're not going to enjoy the show as much. You have to be willing to go with the
But it's not full camp. This isn't Superman 4.
No, it's still quality.
It's still quality, and I think that's why it had so many fans to start. It brought so many people in because it wasn't just a superhero show that, it was not Flash fans who finally got their show. Let's put it that way. This was people who watched good shows. When this was out when I was in high school at the time. And you would be surprised. I remember we had a conversation in one of my history classes. The whole class pretty much was talking about The Flash, the show. Everyone watched it, or a lot of people did. I was shocked to find out that it was that mainstream. It was a big deal. And it dropped off pretty much at season 3 is when everyone left. But at the time, it was interesting when it lasted. And I think we got to start with the cast initially. So, cast and cast. So, we just talked about this in our TV show, our TV show podcast about what makes TV shows great. You need good characters, you need good premise, and you need good plot. So, all 3 of these are interconnected throughout. They do this for the most part very well through 1 through 5, some less than others, but particularly 1 and 2. I think. So we have Barry, Alan, Flash. There was Cisco, Caitlin, Iris, Joe, Dr. Wells, and Eddie.
Yeah,
right? That's our season 1 cast.
Yeah, that's our season 1 cast.
So let's talk about Barry first. So Grant Gustin plays him. Extremely likable performance. And I think it's the complete opposite of Stephen Amell's Oliver Queen.
Yeah.
And it works so well. And then you add along Caitlin and Cisco, which Caitlin starts off not super likable. She's more interesting. She gets there pretty quickly. But
Caitlin has a problem in the earlier seasons, I think, where her story is basically all about whoever her love interest for the season is. They get better about it as they go along. And season 1 isn't bad because, the character they're focusing on, Ronnie, actually becomes a character in the show as it goes on.
Yeah, we'll notice this, especially in the second half of the show. The major problem is too many characters, not enough to do. You got all these people staying around, and then they end up writing character assassinating plot points for them just because they couldn't think of anything else for them to do. But that's later. So your main trio is those 3, I would say, and they just work super well together.
Not even a main trio, though.
No, that's the main trio.
But it's not for season 1. Yeah. That's not the main trio. It's not a trio. There's 4.
Well, no, that's what I'm getting to. So it's different though. It is a trio because of the dynamic. Dr. Wells adds to the trio.
I think in season 1 you consider them a 4-person group.
It's the 4-person group of Star Labs, but every time something happens, it's always the 3 of them, for the most part, against Dr. Wells. There's the episode where that guy gets struck by lightning and then he goes to Star Labs and takes the power out.
Yeah.
And then, he's got a problem with Dr. Wells, not really anyone else on the team. And they're there to support him, but they're also You know, they're not exactly buying that he's innocent. And then same thing happens with the cold gun that Cisco invents. The only one who's really upset with him is Dr. Wells. So he's there and he's part of the team. But when it comes to the chemistry, and not to say he doesn't have chemistry with certain people, but the chemistry is the trio. He adds to the chemistry. He adds to the show. Just like when Iris...
I'll concede that, yeah.
When Iris is there, it adds. When Joe is there, like there's other chemistry that could add when it's Dr. Wells and Joe. Like they got good stuff going on.
Yeah.
This is the other key when it comes to characters is everyone has to work with everyone. Barry works with Eddie. Barry works with Iris. Iris doesn't really work with anyone else. She does later, kind of.
Iris has always been contentious. The season 1, she isn't so much a major character, so much as like the love interest for Barry. Because you'll notice in season 1 that Iris's character doesn't really come into play that much throughout anything in the story. It's more so focused on like Eddie and Joe. Iris is more so just like a linchpin in the story.
Pause for playing. The plane is gone. Okay.
I think Iris worked best when she wasn't forced to have like all these pushed character traits. Instead, when she was serving more so as a support to Barry's side of the story, to like the non-superpowered side of the story.
Yeah, this again, like I say this on pretty much every show. Obviously, character is the most important part of any TV show, and in this case, this show is almost. It's not 100% character, but people care 100% about the characters. That's the number one thing people are really caring about. Because particularly like if we take season 3, for example, the plot revolves around you caring that Iris's life is endangered. If you don't care about Iris, you don't care about the plot. You lose plot because you don't have character. I'm not saying that that's what happened in season 3, but that's what would have happened. Like a lot of people had a problem with Iris in season 3. I bought it. Like she's not my favorite, but I bought it. So I bought the premise. I bought the plot for the season. But season 1 is more straightforward with the hero versus villain type thing. It's just so Eddie I think is the most interesting one here because he's the Tommy Merlin. He's the one season series regular that gets cut after the first season. But he's memorable. He's likable. And that's good.
I think the big thing with Eddie, though, is that, like, unlike Tommy, who's kind of, just playing a supporting role for most of the time, Eddie plays kind of a double role of both, like, an antagonistic presence because, Barry likes Iris, but Iris is getting married to Eddie.
Yeah.
And then he also is playing, like, a heroic presence because he's Joe's partner and he's,
he's never disliked.
They frame it in a way to where like you understand Barry's dislike of Eddie, like on a personal level, but also you respect him for all the good he does.
Yeah, but he never dislikes Eddie as a character. He dislikes Eddie as what he represents, as being in the way of Iris. And the other thing I'll say, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to season 1, but the fact that this is the only season that Iris doesn't know that Barry is the Flash, and I think especially on rewatch when you've already seen some of the other seasons, it's extremely refreshing.
Yes,
I think that's a lot of fun. You miss it when it's gone, or not so much you miss it when it's gone, but you didn't realize how much fun it is when you rewatch it, especially like when you rewatch the first 3 seasons of Arrow, like Thea not knowing that Oliver is Green Arrow, and when Laurel doesn't know, and then those reveals are super fun. So you really don't get a lot of that in The Flash, so I guess just enjoy it, the little ones you do.
I think it was a genius decision to have Joe now, like right off the bat, because then you just play around with like Joe and Barry trying to play around Iris, and it's very entertaining.
And they don't do the thing, really, where Iris suspects that they're lying to her. And then she's just like, oh, that's it. If you can't tell me, I'm not talking to you. It's more so they're telling her not to interact with the Flash, and she doesn't know why.
Well, she's then trying to interview the Flash for her blog and, the Blur at the time or whatever. But it just adds a really fun dynamic to the season. And it's something that provides like a sense of importance to Barry keeping his secret identity, which is not something that is kept up throughout the show.
They drop
for better and worse, mostly worse, but we'll get.
So I think that pretty much covers season 1. Really, really liked it. Would highly recommend it. And this is a good thing about this show, I would say, is that it's consistent in terms of which seasons are good. So it's very easy to start the show and then just stop when you are no longer interested, whether it's season 3, 4, or whatever. Yeah, you're complete basically after each season, more or less, and then it's just if you want more, it's there. You may not like what you get, kind of deal.
I do think you skipped over Dr. Wells, but I don't know if that was intentional.
I mean, I guess I could just add that his villain is really well done, and it adds again to the characters and the plot. If you're buying the villain, if you're buying their motivations, he's acted extremely well. He's confident and he's menacing, and he's got that kind of villain presence where even when he's losing, he's still winning. That Adrian Chase thing. So yeah, I mean that's always fun, but it's not it's not that you're rooting for him, but it's like you like that, because I can see it if you're all, obviously you want Barry to win because he's the hero. So if they catch Reverse Flash and he's still smug, right? You could be like, oh, that's annoying. He lost. Why is he doing that? You don't feel that way. You feel like, oh, he's got something else going on.
Yeah.
What is it? It's interesting. They just play off each other so well. I guess that's pretty much it on him, but it's good. And he will be part of the reason it's good.
He will be a recurring character and something we bring up later.
Yeah. So season 2, I was shocked by this. I always thought that season 1 was my favorite. Upon the last rewatch, I gave season 2 a 9 out of 10, and which would make it my favorite. And I wrote here because I did a written review on IMDb for the whole show. It's like, I don't know how many pages, like 50 pages. I don't know. It's a thesis paper about the Flash. But I wrote that it wasn't necessarily Zoom was a better villain than Reverse Flash. I wouldn't say that. I think the plot revolving around Zoom was better and more interesting than Reverse Flash. Not to say that his was bad, but it was just better. It was an improvement. And
there's just a lot going on in season 2 that's like it ties into Zoom and it expands on everything. Like the entire Earth 2, like just the entire group of characters ties into Zoom so well.
Mm-hmm.
The presence is felt.
Yeah, I guess I didn't have a whole lot to say on season 2, but I guess I put Iris is a good thing to say. Was that
this is Iris's best season and it's not close.
Right. Everyone remembers Iris being just bleh and you're dragging the show down, whatever. Season 2 Iris is actually good. Like by good I mean when she's on screen and doing things that have nothing to do with Barry or Team Flash. It's interesting and I care what's going on. I think it's Wally stuff is going on here.
Yeah.
She's doing Wally stuff, some Joe stuff, and it works. And it's done well. So I think that's worth pointing out. Like at one point there was a good Iris, and it proved that you can have Iris in the show, have her do something interesting that people care about. She doesn't have to inject herself in other people's business. She can do her own things. And no, later on when she does her paper, that's not her own thing. She's injecting her own thing into other people's business. That is not.
You'll get to that later. You get to that later.
Nope. Anything else on season 2? There's not a lot. It's basically just a step up, in my opinion, from season 1. It's all the from season 1.
Bree is there, new character, and Jessie is introduced late into the season, but
Yeah, kind of. There.
She's decent. But Harry is. You will see like a revolving door of Wells for the rest of the show.
I guess we can talk about it in season 3. Use that as a segue in season 3.
I think Harry, his introduction set a very good like precedent for the how the team dynamics were going to go or work going forward, because Harry is an interesting character on his own, and he feels like a good part of the team, even if he's not actually there to be part of the team. He's there for his own reasons. You believe the character, and that is definitely a bit more difficult to do when you're using the same actor to play a different character in the same show.
What I'll also point out is King Shark's CG animation is very good in season 2 in particular. And
it held up surprisingly well.
It really holds up. And you watch even Superman and Lois currently, that I don't know if it was Doomsday, whatever he was fighting. It looks so bad. They were trying to do a really emotional scene with that CGI creature, and it kicked me right out of it because it looks so fake. I was like, no, I don't see anything of value here, which is shocking. It's like, how do you do it better like almost a decade ago? I don't get it. But so season 3, I guess we can start with HR just to keep on the Wells thing. So
yeah,
pretty much every season, for the most part, there's a new Wells, and by that, it's Tom Cavanaugh's character plays a multi. The multiverse. It's like a different version of the same character.
I would actually like to give my thoughts on HR though, because when I first was watching the season, like when HR first came up, I did not like HR as a character. I thought he was like, kind of annoying and didn't really add too much, and that he was just there to give Tom Cavanaugh something to do. But as the season went on, I actually got like, really invested in him and his story, and they somehow like turned it around for me so well. I got invested into this character that normally I just thought was, just wasting time in the show, and they got me to care. And that's like, that's
good character writing. You don't have to kickstart a character. All you gotta do is not make them unlikable. You can just have them be a whatever to start, and then give them an episode to kind of sell you on them, and then you're good.
You can even start them as unlikable, but so long as you make them better, so long as you improve that character and you work to improve that character, you do one
an arc
for the cast and the show.
Yeah, you need an arc, and it's growth, it's progression. You can't just have them be hated though, and say, "Oh, that's the character. He's a jerk." It's like, well, no. Now I hate the character. I hate every scene he's in. I'm starting to hate your show. That's not good. You gotta be careful about that. So this plot of season 3, like I mentioned, is like, Iris is out. I guess we can talk about spoilers. You're not watching this show, if you're haven't seen this episode.
I mean, I guess going into spoilers just makes sense here. I mean, I think when it comes to this, I guess we'll put the spoiler warning here. If you really want to watch The Flash and give it a shot, I would recommend watching seasons 1 to 3. If you still like it after 3, go to 5. Do not go past 5.
Decide now if you're interested in trying it out. 1 and 2, definitely watch, and then you'll probably start 3, and depending on how you like 3, you'll continue. But so spoiler warning, and so Savitar the villain, is what, a evil Barry clone that he created.
Shadow
clone or something.
The Speed Force Remnant is a thing that Barry did in the finale of season 2 to stop Zoom.
The time hole.
He goes so fast that he creates a copy of himself.
Was it a copy, or did he pull a past self from like a few seconds ago and then bring him to current time? So there was actually literally 2 of them. I thought that's what it was.
Either way, basically, there's two Barrys at once.
I thought he time traveled about 10 seconds or something.
I don't think it was time travel for the sole purpose of...
Because it was a time remnant. That's what it is.
It was, yeah, it's a time remnant, but I don't know, like... I don't remember the mechanics, how it worked exactly, but that's not really the important part.
But anyway, it's basically Barry, but he's evil. He's in a suit, and he's trying to kill Iris because he's upset that he was left to die, so he thinks that original Barry shouldn't have any happiness or something like that.
Well, what's really weird about this is that it kind of character assassinates literally every single other character in the show for allegedly not liking this alternate Barry. Like, you know, they
shunned him.
His direct quote is they shunned him because he wasn't the real Barry Allen. And I'm honestly thinking, like, I think he's just, you know, I don't think that actually happened. I think he's just upset and he just is wrong.
You know, it's also funny, I just thought of this because it's a comic book show that he came back for revenge. Wouldn't any other Barry like just be like, you know what? I guess they don't want me, so I'll just go do my own thing somewhere else. Like, yeah, I'll just leave him alone. Whatever, I'll do my own thing. It's like you don't just immediately like, oh, they don't want me. Okay, I'm killing you all. That's it.
Yeah,
revenge.
So
it's like no, but it's interesting. One thing I will mention, I always want to mention this because there's a scene when before he gets revealed to the audience, he reveals himself to Killer Frost, who's Caitlin at this point. And at this point, Killer Frost just left Team Arrow because she's trying to be evil or whatever. She's trying to be evil, and then she's trying to join Savitar, and then she's all like, "Oh, why should I trust you?" And then Savitar reveals himself to her, but the audience doesn't see. And then she immediately is like, whatever you need, I'll do it. And so I think in the next episode, they reveal it to the audience. But I remember watching this live, and when I saw that, I was immediately thought Ronnie or something along those lines. It had to be like a Ronnie or something. Because why else would Caitlin / Killer Frost immediately just team up with Savitar based on it was all based on who he was, right?
Yeah. And
then they reveal it the next episode and it's just Barry, and I was like, but she hates Barry right now. Why?
Like, actually thinking about it, it makes a little bit of sense if, you know, she hates the team and then there's another, like, you know, Killer Frost like person who also hates the team, because Killer Frost is like the alter ego of Caitlin. It's confusing, but
that's
basically
she was able to put it together what she was looking at. All she knew was Barry with a burnt face. That's all.
I mean, reasonably, either it's Barry from an alternate Earth. Well, that's probably what her first thought was. So,
well, and then the other thing is, the only reason she would jump that quickly is because, like you said, she would put it together. Okay, it's not my Barry; it's an evil Barry. And I know he's evil because of all the things Savitar did, right? Because it's a Savitar. Yeah. But then if that's the case, just trust Savitar as is. You don't need to know who it is, because if it's based off of their actions, in suit or out of suit, the actions have all been the same.
I think it's more something to do with the motivation, but yeah.
It's always bothering me. But I don't know. I'll always remember that when I watch that scene.
It's not a huge thing to harp on about that.
It's a nitpick. But it always comes up to me. It's like, I don't know. But yeah, I guess, like he said, HR by the end is a very good character. You miss him when he's gone.
You definitely miss him when he's gone.
Yeah. Season 3, I think it's overall good. I mean, again, it's not the strongest thing. It's very, very bold of them to base the entire premise of that season on you caring that Iris is going to die, but I think you buy it enough. She's not a bad character at that point, so you just go with it.
I think 3 is the start of her being a bad character, though. I think 3 is when she starts making stupid decisions.
Yeah, she starts to make some, but at the very least, she can justify them.
It's not enough to, like, you know, have you not care if Iris dies.
It's just saying that was stupid. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a bit annoying. It doesn't ruin the plot or like the season.
You would rather she didn't do those things, but even that she did them, you're thinking like, okay, I understand why she did it. It's just I don't like it anyway. But
Yeah.
later on, it becomes, I have no idea why you're acting like this. I hate you.
Yeah.
That's what it becomes. So season 4 is... So I wrote the very first sentence on this one. Again, I gave the last one a 7 out of 10. I give season 4 also a 7 out of 10. That's probably a biased, inflated 7 out of 10, but I'll stick with it. The very first thing I noted was that the tone of the show changes for the worse here. So,
I can see it.
Season 1 through 3. No, I'll come back to that point in a second. Not to say that it's bad, or the tone is worse. I would say, definitely in my opinion, but that doesn't mean it affected this season immediately, because the writing of the characters was still there. It kind of pulled you back to what the show used to be.
Yeah,
the show is a lot brighter. It's a lot.
Well, season 3, I think it's very important to note. Season 3 was the darkest season of the show because the whole thing was about, Iris is going to die. We got to save Iris. And they did like the dark visuals,
figuratively and literally. Like, it was just dark. The filters, I think it's the filter they use when they did the show. 1 through 3 has the Arrow filter. It's like they're shot in Vancouver. They're keeping it darker. And then all of a sudden for season 4, it's bright. It is bright comic book. I guess that's what they were going for, was more comic book. Kind of like going from Arrow season 1 through 3 to Arrow season 4. It felt more modern, unique. They had the new layer, or the Arrow cave, whatever.
Yeah.
It was a lot brighter. It was a lot newer. It felt less gritty and more like, I don't know. Like they were setting it up for a formula, I guess, This is your new set, this is your new suit, and we're going to use these from now on. This is what we're doing. Not so much that it didn't feel like the things were earned. It felt like the studio handed them these things, like breaking the fourth wall type of thing.
Yeah.
I guess that's the best way to describe it. But so the season 4 villain is DeVoe, which is our first non-speedster. How do you think the first non-speedster went?
So I think I have a lot to think about DeVoe. I think probably my biggest gripe with him is just he doesn't feel very threatening for a lot of it. And then he also kind of just like kills people without much punch to his actions, Like when he's playing the intellectual game against Barry, like when he gets him arrested. Like that's the stuff that makes him feel threatening. Or when he's using his powers to infiltrate, was that Argus?
Yeah.
Yeah, he like uses all his powers to infiltrate Argus. Like when he is at his best, DeVoe is like he is up there with like the best villains. The problem is that he does not consistently remain at his best.
Right. I wrote down that he worked because he provided a different challenge for the Flash that the other villains did not. And it was more menacing. It challenged him in different ways. And he wasn't like the most powerful. And I think at some points it was a little slow the way they were doing his because they were tying his plan with like the villain of the week type deal.
So, yeah, because there was like the bus metas.
Right. It was progressing.
Meta of the week thing.
It was progressing slowly, but overall, I did like him.
Yeah.
I think there were some things that they took a little too far with his villain stuff, but it would have been nicer to see him a little bit more grounded, like just kind of like a normal guy, but they were not going to do that. And then the only other season 4 thing really is Ralph. But I like
how I just realized we didn't mention Julian at all in season 3. No, I actually want to go back to season 3 for a sec. Alchemy.
Oh.
God, Alchemy was so cool in season 3, and I'm so disappointed they didn't do more with it.
Yeah,
because it was like
it wasn't used a lot.
Yeah, it was like this guy that was giving Metas powers, and it was like the lead up to Savitar. So Savitar hadn't been revealed as the main villain yet.
Mm-hmm.
So it was so cool, and it was the best like mid-season villain basically that the show ever did.
I would probably agree. Well, because the mid-season villains for the other two were the main villain. So
Yeah, it just alchemy was something that helped season 3's pacing a lot because it wasn't just we're chasing Savitar the whole time. It's okay. What's going on with the metas? How are their new metas? Okay, how do we stop alchemy? Okay, who's Savitar? Season 4 could have used something like that. It could have used the scapegoat before DeVoe. I think that's what it's kind of missing.
I agree with that. And he was cool. He had a robe.
Yeah, no, I like alchemy a lot.
So okay, but Ralph now on season 4.
Yeah,
He's a fine addition. He was nice. He played off of Barry well, but I will say, I didn't mention season 3 either. Season 3's Barry was not fun. He was very dry. He was very gloomy. Season 4 tried to change that back initially, but I think Ralph kind of pushed Barry back to season 3 Barry. Because Ralph was kind of like the carefree goofball. And for some reason, Barry all of a sudden was the new Dr. Wells. And he's just like all order. And, you either take this seriously or you shouldn't be here at all. And it's like, since when, dude? You should not be talking. Oliver would be looking at you right now like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I do think that they were trying to carry over like the kind of character from season 3 a little bit, but I definitely think they went too far with it. It wasn't a bad idea on paper, it just in execution.
I will say this about I forgot to mention this in season 1, but it's better that it's here because now you have the context. Season 1 through 5, and I guess and on whatever. Barry is his most fun when he's fun. When he's happy, when he's having a good time, that is fun, Barry. He lifts up the entire show. He lifts up the entire cast when he's doing that. In seasons 3 and 4 and whenever else, when he's like down and he's gloomy or whatever, he kind of takes the whole tone of the show down with him. And I think, just thinking about it now, that may be the reason why they changed the actual visual tone of the show up to more cartoony and comic book, right?
Is because they wanted it to be like the more bright, fun Barry.
I think they were trying to balance out Barry because they didn't want to change his character. So they changed the show around him instead. And it kind of, technically it does kind of work because in season 4 at least, I noticed it was better Barry. So I don't know if that had to do necessarily with the show or if he just had more moments or what. But season 3 was definitely the gloomiest Barry, and I would not describe him as fun in that one. So fun Barry is best Barry, and he's usually fun Barry around Oliver, which is why the crossovers are so good.
Yeah.
So anything else on 4?
I do think that 4 is when the side characters start getting less to do. Like a lot less. Cisco and Caitlin.
Yeah, they kind of have
much to do.
Cisco's kind of babysitting Harry in this one, and then
Harry's back.
I don't even remember what Caitlin's doing.
Harry's fine. Cisco doesn't as much to do.
I didn't like what they did with Harry in that one. Toward the end,
I think toward the end he got worse, but in like the beginning he was fine.
Right.
And that I think Caitlin just. It was okay with Caitlin. I think Caitlin's better in 5.
I don't remember a single thing she did in 4. I can't remember.
Yeah, and she's like doing killer. Oh, that was Amy Net, right? She was like
1 episode.
I don't know. She was like dealing with the Killer Frost thing. Yeah, she was just like dealing with the Killer Frost thing.
Okay. All right.
Just not a lot to do there, and I think you could start to feel the side characters becoming less important. Also, the introduction of Cecile.
She's only
the main cast, kind of. Like, they're preparing you for her introduction to the main cast next season. And, little bit of a spoiler here, but Cecile will be mentioned a lot in the later half of the...
Unfortunately. So, season 5, you're going to take season 5 mostly. I just want to make 2 quick points. I gave it a 7 out of 10 as well, so season 3 through 5. Basically, by 7 out of 10, I'm basically just saying I get about the same amount of enjoyment from each one, which means I overall do like them. And if you like season 1 through 2, I would just recommend you could make it through 5. I would just not go beyond that. But again, it could be different for everyone. You may not like 3, you may not like 4, whatever. So the 2 points I wanted to make was on Nora and on Cisco and Caitlin. So the Cisco and Caitlin one, really quick. I really appreciated them having the metahuman cure subplot. This is probably the best season since like 1 and 2 that utilize these characters, because it gives them something to do. It's interesting, and it uses them both, and they have interesting things going on between them. They kind of have different opinions. It's interesting. It works.
It's also relevant to the main plot.
And relevant, yes. So it was a good use of those 2 characters. And then Nora. So she's the new character, Barry's daughter from the future. I finally pinpointed this out last time we watched it. I could not figure out what was wrong with her character before. I'd seen it a couple times, not as much as the other seasons, but every time she was on, I'd be like, "What? Something's off with her. Like, what is going on?" And I finally figured it out. So she, in the show, she tells, or she's supposed to be in her mid to late 20s. That's how old she is, factually, which puts her around either the same age or a couple years younger than Barry. So they're more or less the same age. Same thing with Iris. Barry and Iris obviously are the parents. They got to act like adults. So to make this work, I don't know why she had to be this age. That's problem 1. Problem 2 is, I guess, to make the difference, or to show that she was their child, they made her act like a child. And it is so weird. It is so awkward. I wrote that it was annoying, and I also wrote that she works in the season because of how they use her character, not because of her character. I think her character itself is flawed. Again, like I said, it becomes annoying. She's whiny, and she starts like crying and complaining when she doesn't get her way. It's like, how old are you? Like,
I think the only reason they put her in her 20s instead of in her teens is because they wanted her to be a CSI. That is the only reason they did that.
Yeah, but I would have bought an 18-year-old.
You would argue if I would argue they made it a throwaway line.
Yeah,
I would argue they intended for you to not take it that way, and they wanted her to act like a child anyway, but they also wanted her to be a CSI, so they just had to explain it away. And then the consequence of that is that her character is just...
I would have bought an 18-year-old CSI because it's from the future. You could have said, oh, well, the school system's different. You go through school faster. She could have been an intern. She could have been, there's technology that helps with crime scene investigations, so it's not as demanding. There's so many things you could have done. I could have bought an 18-year-old. If you really wanted her to be a CSI, she could have been an aspiring CSI. Did she have to be hired at the exact same position and job that her dad was? Probably not. She could have wanted to do that. The whole point was she wanted to be like her dad. That's what the point they were trying to get across. She didn't need to literally have the exact same job at the exact same desk as him to do that. Which thus you didn't need to be 28. I think the only reason why she's 28 is so she could have that tragic backstory of her friend dying or whatever. She could have been 18.
Teens.
I don't know. I
think it's just the CSI thing.
But that's like my biggest complaint, I guess, that season. You can take the rest.
All right. So season 5, this is where I stopped. First, quick to get this out of the way, the 2 cicadas as villains. Did not care for them. They were not what made the season interesting. They were easily the worst villains in the seasons I watched because they weren't really the main villain of the season. Because basically from the beginning, you know that Nora's hiding something, and you figure out it's like, she's talking with Reverse Flash. So, okay, Reverse Flash is obviously going to be the actual villain of the season because it's Reverse Flash. And this is like season 5. It's a big milestone in the show. Of course, he's going to come back and start doing stuff. He doesn't. not really.
Well,
We're not going to talk about Crisis.
No, I mean, talk about Crisis, but
I will mention that his line is that I'll see you in Crisis, implying he's going to play a big role there. He doesn't. So
for Reverse Flash, they did. He was in the season. He was not set up to be the villain of the season at all. Yes, you could say that I saw it coming. He was going to be the villain. That doesn't mean that he was set up to be the villain. And I think that was the biggest problem with him ending up being the villain. He spent so much time on the two cicadas, and it was you invested all this time. They're supposed to be the villains, and then Reverse Flash just swoops in at the very end, and all of a sudden he's the villain. And and what I got from that was the season just would have been so much better if Reverse Flash was the villain the whole time. It could have spent a lot more time with them. Could have probably had a lot more interesting interactions with these people, or the characters with him.
So Reverse Flash, when he was there, though, he was very good. I really liked his character in this season. He felt just like Reverse Flash. All calculated, all the manipulation. It just felt very true to form. It's just something you wish you got more of, and you wish the season leaned into more. It also, makes Nora's character work in the season a lot better, because her flawed judgment isn't just because she's being stupid, but because she's listening to the one person who would, help her see her father again and actually get to know him. And that person just so happens to be Reverse Flash, but, you can blame Iris for a lot of things this season, actually, including being an awful parent. So, I think this is really where Iris gets really bad. Like last season, we didn't mention this, but we have the "We Are the Flash" moment, super infamous.
To say that.
I'm just gonna ignore that for the time being, because, like, as bad as that is, like, Iris in season 4 was a redeemable character. You could have brought her back to her heights of, like, season 2, right? Season 3 didn't damage her irreparably. Season 4 was like, you're starting to feel it. You need to fix this character before it's too late. Season 5 is too late. Like, when Barry goes off on Nora, like, talking to Reverse Flash, Iris is just being the worst. Yeah. Like, for no reason, she's siding with Nora, and, it's just... It's the things, like...
desperate for attention. That's what it is.
It's just building up to Iris not being a great character.
The motivations are weak. The motivations for Iris get weaker and weaker, which is why no one buys her character. No one's on her character's side, because Barry's over here making sense. She isn't. So, of course, they're fighting. You're going to be like, Barry's right. Iris, you're stupid. And that's what this happens over and over for the rest of the show, to the point where Iris just becomes the most hated character in the entire show.
Yeah, because she's just incorrect.
Because she's fighting. She's incorrect and fighting with your favorite character of the show.
Yeah.
So, of course, you're going to dislike her.
So, yeah, not a strong showing from Iris, to, put it bluntly. Cisco and Caitlin talked a bit about the metahuman cure. That was very good. Big approval there. Joe got sidelined hard. He's basically out of the show.
And this season, he took a big break. Which
he is just hanging out with Cecile. And
you know what? It's okay, because of the problems that come up in the later seasons, where you have a cast of 20 characters and 19 of them are doing nothing. So I would rather him be out than there and doing nothing. Or like wasting time with like, we're going to add a detective side plot where he's trying to solve this drug thing or whatever. It's like, I don't need to see that. No one cares for that.
I just think that the Cecile plot, what's really interesting is Ralph and Cecile actually have a really good dynamic sometimes. Like when they appear together, they actually have a good dynamic. What?
Yeah. They can have a good dynamic.
Yeah, but they have like a, Cecile's definitely the weaker end of that dynamic, but it's something, right? It's something. But other than that, Cecile doesn't really offer anything aside from wasting a lot of time. So that's a lot of dead time. The cicadas are a bit of dead time, but that core conflict of Barry, Nora, and Iris, like as annoying as Iris can be, that core story there, especially considering is Sherlock? That's his name? Yeah, Sherlock. Yeah, he comes in. He's like a detective for hire that was hired to figure out who Cicada is.
He's fine.
And then he suspects Nora, and there's just that's the main plot of the season, basically.
Sherlock works because he helps Nora's character. I think without him, Nora's character would have been unbearable.
I think Sherlock is like the one thing holding this season together, and he does wonders for it, even if I'm like, not a huge fan of his character.
But yeah,
he does like so much.
Just like Nora, it's not because of his character, it's because of how they use his character.
Yeah, and you can respect that. Right. And I think that just when it comes down to it, though, the season 5, it's really where it should have ended. I think if they finished it in Crisis, like one final confrontation between Barry and Reverse Flash, and then maybe like a flash forward, this would have been the end of the show. It would have been like perfectly fine. Maybe it wouldn't have ended on the highs, but it would have ended before it hit rock bottom. And I think many people would have taken that over what eventually happened.
Yes. Okay. So we're getting close to our time here. So we got to go through the rest of this very, very quickly.
Well, I don't think you'll take very long for most of it.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just read what I wrote on these other ones, because seasons 6 through 9 are a waste of time. I do not want to waste your time trying to deep dive them, because they're not worth that. But what we'll do very, very quickly is if you want to say anything on the Crisis beginning of season 6.
I will just say that...
Not on the Crisis, but specifically...
Yeah, going into it, Barry thought he was going to die, but we knew that wasn't the case because Oliver was going to die instead, because everybody knew that. So, it could... I'm guessing... I haven't seen the beginning of season 6, but also they make a big deal of, oh, Barry's going to die. He's not going to die. So it just kind of feel like it's just a way happening for the sake of... Yeah, it's just a waste of time and drama. And also, there was supposedly a villain, but he just got cut out, but whatever.
I put that Oliver dying in the first episode was dumb, and was only done because the writers wanted Barry to be reflecting on Oliver's death, but that doesn't matter because Barry will be reflecting on Oliver's death until the end of the show. Yeah. So it was ultimately pointless, but that's more of an Oliver Arrow thing. So, season 6, I'll go through this as quickly as possible. Season 6, I gave it a 4 out of 10. I put that this season narrowly manages to avoid performing any character assassination, but comes dangerously close with moments like Iris demanding respect from Barry because she has her team citizen. Yes, they want you to believe that her dumb newspaper is just as important as a team of superheroes protecting the city. I actually try to make that point. Wally throws a fit because he's out of the season. We forgot to mention Reverse Flash. He's cool, I guess. But
oh yeah, Wally.
He becomes lame because he leaves. He's not in the show for more than a season. He's only in season 3 really. He leaves, so then he comes back finally in season 6 after 2 years and starts throwing a fit at Barry. And it's like, where have you been? You show up after 2 years and you start whining. Okay. The villains Bloodwork and Mirror Girl, or whatever her name is, suck and make for pathetic storylines that I did not care about in the slightest. This season is when the formula, and I have that in quotes because this show is nothing but formula from here on out, becomes standard practice and gets even more offensive going forward. There you go. So that's season 6. Basically, just to summarize it, it's no bueno. It's waste your time. No interesting villains. The story's formulaic. You waste time on these side characters. No one's there to watch. Nobody. Cecile, no. All right. Barry, season 7. This is the bad one. 3 out of 10 for season 7. I consider this season to be the worst season. I know a lot of people may point out right away that the characters at this point in the show suck, and that's why the show sucks. And they're not wrong. But it's much more than that. The Flash as a show is 100% writing. Writing good characters, good character interactions, good episode stories, and good season-long stories. All of these were present, I would argue, in seasons 1 through 5, and are completely absent in seasons 7 through 9, 6 being the exception because the characters individually were barely passable. Season 7's characters have zero chemistry with one another. They never do anything compelling, and the stories being told each episode are filled with generic, obvious plots and forced conflict. Barry is constantly acting like a jerk to people from here on out just because the writers wanted a little drama, with no regard for how out of character this is for him. Barry,
I want to cut it a little bit here. There was this one moment where he was watching, and he was making fun of it because there was this argument between Barry and some other character. I don't remember the name of, don't care to. And Barry started whining that he knew he was the Flash because he was saying he wasn't on the team.
Yeah, Chester. Yeah. He was like, he's just trying to help. Like, he's like Nora. He acts like a child. He's supposed to be like 30 years old, but he's like a genius or whatever. I don't know. It's super lame. He's like a Twitch streamer, and he's trying to help out, like inventing something. He's trying to ask Barry. He's like, "Oh, what can I do to help?" And then Barry just blows up in his face out of nowhere and says, "You're not on the team, Chester." It's like, well, it was so funny, but it's stupid. But I need to find that clip and just start using that from now on. But hopefully, I think I was going a little fast. Hopefully, you can get what I'm saying from all this. Barry sucks to watch in seasons 7 through 9, and any and all character growth he had in the first 5 seasons has been completely thrown out. He is now a prop for the writers to use whenever they need. The same can be said for every cast member at this point, and it is infuriating as much as it is insulting to me, not only as a previous fan of this show, but as a human being with intelligence, which I think I said that exact quote earlier.
Yes. I honestly don't think you need to really summarize the rest of the show, because I think
the other 2 paragraphs are not as long as this one.
Well, I think that kind of just summed it up, though, right there.
Yeah, that was my big rant.
They're just puppets. They aren't characters anymore, and the show isn't a show. It's just a train wreck happening in very slow motion over the next few years, and there's nothing enjoyable to watch about it.
Yeah, I forget. So yeah, that season 7 really upset me. At this point, I stopped caring at all. At this point, I was watching the show. I had it on the background while I played games or did homework or whatever else. Like,
he recently had gotten into Minecraft at the time and was just playing on his Minecraft.
Gotten into Minecraft. I've been a fan of Minecraft for over a decade.
Yeah,
but yeah. So that basically sums up the entire thing. You know what? I did a giant plot of land in my Minecraft file, that big old island of dirt. Yeah. Every time I look at the dirt and I imagine the time that I did filling up all that dirt, I just think of the exact seasons of Flash I was watching and all the garbage I had to listen to. But anyway, so yeah, all that stuff I said about Barry and the characters is consistent through the rest of the other 2 seasons. So I don't spend too much time talking about the other 2 seasons because it's all pretty much the same. Some worse stuff. Season 9 is wow. Bart gets added into season 7, which is basically like what, Nora's brother or something. I don't know. He's just as annoying as you would imagine at this point for a character. Yeah. He starts complaining to Barry that Godspeed is his reverse Flash. And well, it's such a stupid thing to go. It's a stupid place to go in the show. And Barry kind of does what he should have done in character. And he's like, well, no, he doesn't, because he had that scene with Nora in season 5 where he's like, do you know what he did?
Yeah.
And then doesn't he fight with Iris at the same thing? He's just like, you don't know him like I know him. I hate him, or whatever it is. Like, it's a really emotional scene. He explodes, and there is no compromise when it comes to Reverse Flash to Barry. Yeah. So when this happens again, and Bart is like trying to say that Godspeed is his Reverse Flash, Barry should have exploded on him and said, like,
what's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you? How dare you?
Why do you want a Reverse Flash?
Yeah, or it's like just anything. But they're like, think of all the things basically that scene, how that scene could have gone, how he could have reacted. It's not there. None of it. It's so disappointing, and it's a letdown, and you want to punch Bart in the face for even suggesting that. So, season 8, 4 out of 10. Is at this point I stopped caring at all, so season 8 didn't upset me as much as 7 did. I left a lot of dumb stuff out of season 7, but I didn't want this review to go on forever. Reverse Flash manages to get his character assassinated here. The writers ran out of ideas and just threw him in all over the season. They do this all the time, season 7 through 9. I'm not going to pretend to follow the plot or understand what they were trying to do, but like either at the end of the season along with the villain, or just like in 5, they'll drop their villain at random points, just be like, Reverse Flash is the villain of the season. It's like, there's no setup here. You can't just throw him in, and there's no weight behind him. They make his suit look stupid. There's nothing. It's like, I don't know. At that certain point, it's like he just kept bringing him back because he had Tom Cavanaugh. And that's another problem. There's supposed to be another actor as Reverse Flash, and he's not. Oh, and then there's the part where they delete all wells from the universe, and Reverse Flash gets erased along with them. For those keen viewers who paid attention, unlike the writers of this show, you would know that Reverse Flash is not a Wells. Therefore, he should not have been erased. But, well, what is I expecting?
Competence.
It's just as dumb as you would expect. That is the ultimate tagline for seasons 6 through 9, or especially like 8 through 9. And lastly, season 9, 4 out of 10. Again, I didn't care anymore at this point, but there are some horrible things I wanted to address. Caitlin hasn't been a good character for a while now, but she actually dies in the first couple episodes somewhere, and nobody cares. Literally none of the characters show a hint of sadness towards the death of their friend that some of them have known for almost a decade at this point. But I shouldn't have expected anything more. And then what do? They have a party that same episode?
They go clubbing, yeah.
Clubbing, and they're like dancing and smiling. It's like, just in case you forgot, 2 minutes ago, she died. Whatever. That's about as much respect as that show has for any characters you liked previously. So, you just gotta think that like they did this on purpose for some reason. Like, there's no way that stuff happens, and they're that dumb they can't realize what they're doing. No one on this planet can be that dumb.
You'd be surprised.
No one on this planet should be that dumb and have a job like that. All right. They try to drag Oliver back and ruin his character too.
Oh yeah, you told me about that one.
This is only the millionth time Oliver has had to spell out to Barry that he's being an idiot and slap some sense into him. So that was a nice bit of character regression. Barry. So basically after 5, there is no more character growth for Barry. He's a different character. His character goes backwards. Just nothing happens with him. So if you're in this show for the character of Barry Allen, don't watch after 5 because there is no more. It's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. It's stupid. Regardless of what that episode is rated and what people say, it's not good. Apparently that episode's highly rated, which kind of came back to the Superman and Lois thing. It's like, I think at this point, the only, like, I don't want to be mean to viewers, but you know the plastic bags that you get when you like open like clothes or something, and they got that warning on there that says don't put the bag over your head and choke yourself. That warning is for people that like these episodes.
I'm just reminded of that one clip. What is it? It's like they did the thing and I clapped when I saw it.
Yeah, they did. They literally said that in a review I read for Superman and Lois. I can say spoilers here, but like they kill Lois's dad, the big monster.
Yeah.
And they were like, I can't believe they killed off a character. This show gets a 9 out of 10 for that alone. Or like the fact that they did something so emotional or whatever. Like they did a big thing. It's like, no, you can't just do a big thing. You got to earn the big thing.
I think you should have just cut it off after the show did something. 9 out of 10.
Well, that's more or less what they said. That's indirectly what they said. The show did something. 9 out of 10. That's basically that. Those are the reviews I am reading for Superman and Lois, and that's what I'm getting from the last season of Flash. I think there's one more sentence here. The finale is forgettable and everything. Oh, the finale. Bleh. The finale is forgettable and was everything it shouldn't have been. Every single speedster villain is brought back only to get killed by Allegra and Flying Cecile. Great. I'm done now. So you can definitely tell at that point I had had enough. I don't care. You shouldn't care. Don't watch season 6 through 9. Final thoughts on The Flash as a whole. I will just say it was very, very important that this show, for several reasons. I don't think the Arrowverse would have been as big as it was, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, without The Flash. It also kind of kept DC alive, the Arrowverse as a whole, but especially The Flash for its popularity. Kept DC alive in the 2010s. Yeah, the TV, like, at that point, I don't think there was a lot of, it was kind of slightly before streaming, but there still wasn't a lot of people watching stuff on TV, I don't think, at least not me.
It was on the way. Flash was one of the last bastions for TV at the time.
Yeah, I mean, it was important, I would say that. And and a message to Grant Gustin, if he's listening
somehow.
Do a musical. I didn't say that, but season 3 has one of my favorite episodes where they do the musical thing. Excellent songs, mostly. Very good dancing. He is a natural dancer. He went to tap school, because that still exists.
He deserves better.
Great.
He just deserves better.
Well, no, he doesn't deserve better. He should be doing better. I would say he deserves better in season 6. But because he kept signing on for every season after that, he knew what he was doing. He's the one wasting his own time. He has every choice to do better. He just wasn't. So I no longer have sympathy for him. I'm not, defending him anymore. I just think he has too much talent to be wasting it on stuff like that. He should be going and doing something. Use your talent and, contribute to almost a dead genre. Like, you could easily, save it. Put out a La La Land. Put out a In the Heights. Tick, tick, boom. You can do something like that. Anything else?
Flash is always going to be a complicated show to talk about because it has such high highs and such low lows that it's almost unlike any other show to really be out there. And I think that just in the end, it's kind of the perfect example of how you should treat shows. Watch what you enjoy and then stop when you don't. You don't have to. Shows do not deserve your commitment if they are not willing to treat you with some basic common sense.
Do as I say,
they do not,
as I do.
You do not owe them anything. You do not owe these shows anything. They owe you your time. Do not devote your time to a show that does not respect you. If a show no longer respects you, then don't devote your time to it. If a show is respecting you, then go right ahead.
The Flash is like a slower train wreck than Game of Thrones. Like, Game of Thrones is a sudden, train through the wall, just obliterates you. But,
yeah, Game of Thrones is a train wreck. Flash is death by a billion cuts, and at some point you're cutting into just a massive flesh.
You're cutting into the other cuts that were already there.
Yeah, but I think I'm going to end it with, I enjoyed what I saw of it, and I don't plan on seeing the rest of it. But to be positive, there is stuff to enjoy, and it should not be a forgotten show. It should not be a show that is just said it was always bad. It should not be a show that is just discarded. Yeah. It has value, and it deserved its time in the spotlight.
That's a good point. Is don't take the whole show down for its failures in the second half. Just don't watch the second half. Just cut it off. And to clarify, when he said there are good points, he did not mean in seasons 6 through 9. There are no good points in seasons 6 through 9. The good points are the first half of the show. So, that's pretty much it. Went a little longer than I wanted to, but that's what happens when you get heated. But The Flash...
It's The Flash.
It's a 9-season show. I didn't cover nearly everything, but...
See, it's just like The Flash. He's the fastest man alive, yet it takes him like 15 minutes to go anywhere.
Yeah. But yeah, if you made it this far, thank you, and leave a comment how far you made it to The Flash. If you ever tried it out, if you've heard about it but never got to watch it, maybe now you can. Although you probably just got spoiled if you're actually listening.
I mean, I imagine a lot of people who've seen this probably would have just either been fans or somebody who just wanted a little bit of a retrospective. But maybe this will convince some people to check out the first 5 seasons.
Yeah. All right. That's it. Yeah.